Hey, my name is ShawNshawN. I sell art on ShawNshawN.co. Today we're going to review Mortal Kombat. So Mortal Kombat is a movie by Simon McQuoid. Time is 1 hour and 50 minutes, a little long. I like 1 hour and a half, more or less, for action films. Louis Tan plays Cole Young. Jessica McNamee, Sonya Blade. Joss Lawson plays Kano. Joe Taz Lim plays Sub-Zero. Makad Brooks plays Jax. And the battery's dead. So this story is based off the video game from the 1980s, Mortal Kombat. I played it a lot as a kid. I was never really an expert, but I definitely have played a lot of the characters. Everyone back in the day had kind of their favorite character. There was different special, sometimes you could like slide kick or punch, or there was always jump flying kicks. There was always different moves that were particular to each character, and versus other characters, you could use certain moves to really beat that other character. So it was a really kind of fun game because everyone kind of fell into, I think, one particular character they like, and then you would learn their superpower, which was kind of this really fancy combination of button combinations with joysticks, and then you would activate their superpower and really kick ass against the other person. And the story has that element, and this kind of deals with the story of this young guy who's a fighter. He kind of finds out he's one of these defenders of Earth, and he goes to a training camp to be trained and then fight off the other immortals or other fighters from the outer world. So that's basically the story. Has an extremely thin plot line. There's basically almost no plot line. They really just like scan this horizon and be like, a fighter enters. They go to their journey. A fighter enters. They go to their journey. This kind of silly plot, like explaining almost next to nothing. Almost no dialogue, no character build in a way. But I mean, it's just a fight. You know, you're just going to go there for the martial arts kind of thing, but it's definitely missing kind of. Matrix has a lot of martial arts as well, but has a great philosophy, and this has basically no philosophy behind it. So again, really weak storyline, but it's a lot of fun action. It's better than King Kong versus Godzilla, that's for sure. They have like plenty of time. They have like 1 hour and 50 minutes, but there's almost no character build. You kind of have a little bit of character development in each one, but you don't really feel there's much depth to any of those characters. The real plus side, I think, was some of the kills from the video game are brought into the video game. So you have some of the classic kill sequences, like the guy with the metal hat will like throw his hat and try to kill you with it. You have the laser eyes shooting out. You have the guy with four arms come after you, the guy that crushes heads with his hands. And some of the classic scenes from the video game are put into the movie, so that's really fun. I got some of the characters were really, I don't know, just the fight sequence was set up better. Like the guy with the metal hat was probably the best because you're like, I remember that from the video game, right? In other sequences, you're like, you recognize the weapons, but you don't really recognize their special powers so much. So I don't know if they did such a great job with some of the characters as far as making them the connection with the video game. Maybe I just didn't play those characters enough and didn't remember as much. But yeah, I think there could have been a little bit better connection there. Definitely Scorpion's really strong. That was one of the key characters from the very Act 1 and Act 3, and so that's well developed. It's also cool they have this connection where the heroes have to find their superpower, and they can't really find it except through fighting. And this is exactly how you play the game, right? You just play in the accent, you'd hit the superpower, you're like, how'd I hit the superpower, right? And you'd play that character again and again and again, and just, you know, it was a way for the arcade game to just feed quarters and make a lot of money, right? Because you would want to play and be like, I want to get that special skill back, that's super cool, right? And so you had to play it quite frequently, like $5 a week or more. You know, in video games you'd be playing, so you'd be playing a lot of money to these arcade games just to learn how to play this game and be able to defeat your friends. So that's kind of fun in the movie because that's very true to the video game. This other really nice story element that I thought was really solid was kind of this Japan versus China rivalry in the beginning of the film, because that's very true to how China sees Japan. It always sees them as kind of like, oh, we're the central kingdom and we're the best thing here. But then they have this kind of weakness to their character, like, but Japan beat us once in World War II, and Japan invaded us through Korea once in history. So they have kind of this shamefulness of their history, that they're this great power, but then this little tiny nation kind of started eating parts of their empire, and UK from another side of the planet started eating part of their empire, and France and Britain, they all kind of had little enclaves in China. So China's always very ashamed of their colonial past, of being colonized by other powers, when they're supposedly a great power themselves. Probably should have been a colonial power, but they never really developed that way. They are kind of right now, so it's kind of interesting, but that has a little bit of that in the film. So I thought that was a really kind of solid structure to build on. The evil leader that plays that outer world, he actually seems maybe a little bit like Xi Jinping a little bit. with long hair, right? Because he's like the dominoes of evil, and I think he speaks Chinese, and the good guy is Japanese. So that's kind of like a little bit touchy. I'm like, you know, if they figure that out in China, they're gonna fucking ban the film, right? But I think it's very subtle, so it's not like it's an obvious point. They have this outer world that comes to Earth fight. They kind of play dirty and cheat to try to win the competition because they won 9 out of 10, so they need the 10th one, and then they'll rule all of Earth. And so they have this great drive to win at any cost, right? Kind of similar to Taken straight out of Karate Kid. The bad guys always cheat and the good guys try to play honestly. Kind of really cheesy kind of setup in a way. The shocking thing was it was a packed cinema. I didn't really want to go. I was like, oh, there's going to be another King Kong action film. I really wanted to see a horror film this week, but then it didn't show up at my local cinema. It only showed out like an hour away. I'm not going to drive an hour just to go to the cinema, right? When I can just download a movie in a minute. I probably should get Disney Plus, right? And just get HBO Max, call it a day. But they don't have all the movies out. That's the problem. If they did, I would totally get those services and just not go to the cinema anymore. But there was this really packed cinema. I was really shocked. I hadn't seen 50 people in a cinema for a long, long time. And I go to the cinema quite frequently. So the fact that they kind of packed this cinema, I was like really shocked. So yeah, I mean, the film is getting a lot of outreach. I was surprised because I knew it wasn't going to be a strong story going into it. But I think it has that appeal for older gamers like myself that played in the 80s, the video game, and then you have younger gamers. They want to see a video game or see a martial arts film, so you have kind of action. So it's a great kind of family film, I think, for anyone that likes any kind of gaming, which is a lot of people. They're going to probably enjoy this film. Not from a story in depth, like you're going to watch it many times, but it's just kind of a fun, kind of silly martial arts film, right? The one thing I think they could have shot differently was they do a lot of the fight sequences really close in. So it's like you're really like, pow, 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 pow. And instead of shooting it way far back where you can see all the body parts, I think it would have been better to have a few scenes shot kind of Hong Kong style, which is farther back. And the Hong Kong style further back is you actually see both figures fighting at the same time. And so that would actually replicate how it feels on the video game, because it's in the video games, you're constantly two figures going back and forth like this, and you're fighting and flipping and then jumping around, and then, but you're all just within a 2D space here fighting back and forth, and that's the video game. And so if they'd done a few scenes like that, they couldn't do many, but just a few scenes like that, I think that would have really given the feel of the transition from the video game there. And it, you know, they could have had the kill sequences maybe set up that way or something. A different way to shoot it, I think. So I think if they kind of had used less of these super close in shots where it's like literally like you're in the camera and pow, 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 and you almost don't see what's going on, right? Which is okay, but it's kind of like they're doing it to cover up the Western actors not being able to fight as well as the Asian characters, I think. I don't know. But again, I think too much close-in shots. Hong Kong style would have been better. So they have this other thing they use, you know, family sacrifice is one of the key values, and it kind of sets the scene for Act 1, and it's kind of resolved in Act 3. So that's kind of another kind of story they develop a little bit, but not much. Just kind of like the real raw elements, and just like there's a father and mother, and the family gets killed off and the father wants revenge, and then the same thing in Act 3. You're like, okay. It's one of those classic plot lines from like Chinese soap opera or whatever, but it's kind of really thin on the elements that you don't ever develop the characters, or you almost don't care, but you know, it's just a real simple plot line. The interesting part is there's also kind of the temple where they train at. It's actually been destroyed. It actually used to be much better in the glory days. And this really reminded me of kind of the China in 1940s, where they went through and had a cultural greatly floored, and they destroyed all the cultural history of China. And there's very little left of the real rich history of China has been wiped clean by the Communist Party. So this is kind of very touchy symbolic taste of that. And so that was a really nice element, I think, as well. Very subtle put in there. And also, you know, the evil bad guy looking a little bit like Xi Jinping. I think that was accidental maybe, but hopefully they don't read my review. They'll be like, oh, Sean said it's the CCP banned key. Anyway, I hope you guys like my review. Give me a thumbs up. If you like to subscribe, you can subscribe below. And I'll see you in the next movie review. Thanks for watching, guys.